my screen. All right. Back for session 6, delivering your value. So just like we've talked about over the past 6 weeks or so, we're talking about what successful agents do every day. And within that, we're going to be talking about setting up your value proposition and what that looks like, and why it's important, and kind of what it means, and possibly doing a little activity around it as well. So forgive me, I'm doing this a little bit different today. I'm not used to doing a presentation or anything directly online, but hopefully it'll be a little bit easier than kind of going back and forth like we have been. But we've seen this before. This is what successful agents are doing every single day to grow and run their businesses. And it's no secret, right? Just like we've talked about, lead generate for buyers and sellers, have your listing presentations to go on listings, buyer presentations, the same idea, and understanding, previewing the market, knowing what's out there, being able to, one, compare it with yours or your list, your sellers, and share what's out there with your buyers. And then the idea of running your business, making sure you know how to market, show the right houses, negotiate contracts, and all that same old stuff that we've been talking about. But let's talk about defining your value, what that looks like, how to deliver it, knowing what to say, and then getting it out there to the right people. So when we talk about value, what we want to do is ultimately craft a simple and precise description of the benefits to the client. What is it that you're going to be doing? Being able to state that clearly to convey, what you do that's part of your value proposition. It's that ultimately it's the agreement between you and your client. It's that covenant of what you're promising them, and being able to promise it and deliver it. You have to be able to convey that. Make sure that it's clearly stated to the client so they understand it, and they can take it and compare you with others, especially if you're in competition for that business. Out of the two of you that are on here, Vinny, what does your value proposition look like?
Honesty. It's about
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's certainly I would say a pillar to be on that value proposition, and probably what's on a lot of people's minds without saying it. They're questioning whether or not it's the truthful information, and I think how do you convey that to your clients? I mean, a lot of them that you've discussed with me so far know you, but I'm sure there's some that have been referrals. How do you convey that it's honesty and that's important to you?
Usually I've never had a referral yet. Everybody's been whatever. Just talking to them, I guess. That's
Okay.
the best way to convey it.
Okay. Katrina, what about you? What's part of your value proposition or one piece of it?
Mine is service provided or value.
Okay. And how do you convey that, especially to people that don't already know you?
So with listings, it's what I provide for the fee that I'm receiving. It's
Okay.
more than just slapping in their property in the MLS, but also providing services before and after listing. So like that's, and with buyers, the same thing, is making sure that I have the best information and sharing that information with them quickly.
Awesome. So do you have, I know, Vinny, you shared with me before a lot of what you do to put that out there is ultimately having that conversation. Katrina, what does that look like for you? Is it in the conversation? Is it um, a piece of collateral, like you give them a sheet listing your services? Is it your marketing package? What does that look like?
Yes, most of the time it is. I usually disclose it in any of the conversations. And for me, what I find is that it's interesting because it's not always necessarily what wins me, quote unquote, the client. It's the conversation that goes along with it, and showing that I'm willing to do more than just the bare minimum.
Awesome. Oh, I appreciate you sharing that, Katrina, because what that really does is kind of bring us to this this next part, 3 aspects of service and what that looks like. One of the things that in researching and kind of getting the information for the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, the MREA book, every single top producing agent that he talked to, Gary Keller talked to, had a deep kind of inherent sense of service, going above and beyond, and what they're going to be offering to the client. That it's not just the list of items, it's kind of what needs to get done to accomplish the goals of their client. And knowing the underlying purpose of the real estate profession also kind of goes into that, making sure that that idea of service is there, because ultimately, we're providing a service. As an agent, we're providing knowledge in the market. We're taking those to-do steps on a list, getting a house ready for sale, having each and every line item ready to go, marketed correctly, put out onto the MLS and other marketing platforms to make sure that they get the best level of exposure, and all those little things in between. I mean, how many of your listings go exactly the same? Or even your buyers, how many of them go exactly the same? Is there ever anything that pops up that's a little bit different than the others?
Never.
Come on now. Give me an
Never.
example. What's something that's a little bit different that's popped up recently for you, Katrina?
I think of during the seller's market is what is a winning offer, and what wins one house is not going to win another. And I have learned a lot that your reputation as an agent means a lot when submitting an offer.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And funny that you say that as well. Your reputation as an agent. I know some of the conversations that I've had recently have talked about that in terms of, if you're out there and know other agents, and your reputation kind of precedes you in terms of he's professional or she's professional, the deals go flawlessly, always willing to work and make sure that, one, the best interests of their clients are at heart, but also come together to figure out how to close the deal so that everybody gets what they want, or at least as close as possible, is very important. So that it just came up in conversation. I was talking with one of the agents, I think it was Marcelo's deal, and he was sharing that with me, that he knew Marcelo and has done transactions with him before, and it was very important. And that's one of the things that he shared with his clients. There's 2 offers that are very similar. I know this agent, and I know they're going to be as straightforward as possible and not have any hiccups through the transaction. That's very important. Have and communicate a clear sense of how you deliver on that purpose is pretty important. And ultimately, we've heard the word fiduciary before, and I think it was just in the agency class quite a few different times. But exhibit a continual drive to put your clients' needs above all else is pretty important. So What is the underlying purpose of real estate? I think there's a sheet here. Let's see, or an activity here. Nope, that's the next section. So what's the purpose of real estate? For buyers and sellers, of course, that's different, right? So finding the buyers the right home, the one that fits their needs, the best price and the right time with the least amount of issues. And then, of course, for the sellers, it's kind of the opposite. How to be able to unload their home, netting them the most amount of money, the shortest amount of time with the least amount of problems, right? So it's making sure that you're able to accomplish that goal while meeting the needs of the sellers and buyers that we're working with. So I'm curious, what happens to your clients' buying and selling experience if you don't understand the purpose of real estate? Right? What happens to that experience? That if they get the feeling that it's about commission for you or just getting the transaction closed, what happens to their experience?
I think it can be diminished on how you behave, and their perception of what real estate agents and realtors do is determined by how they've been treated before. And
Yeah.
how you treat them is how, going forward, their assumption on how it's always going to be.
Let me, I appreciate you sharing that, Katrina. Let me go ahead and read here. I've got a review up. And so this is one of my business partners from before, and I know him well, right? I worked with him for 4 years. Had a lot of the hard conversations, had a lot of personal conversations with this gentleman, and the review is a negative review, right? So we know that if you lose sight of it, sometimes things can happen and the experience can change. So I was not impressed with this person and his team. They sway you to use a specific closing company and buyer's brokers, both of whom did not handle the matter very well. The responsiveness was average to a point to move things along. Did not show priority as the intended presented busy all the time. It was a large transaction and I felt pushed to have him represent me, but sad to say, we never met and felt like it was all about commission. Basically, the team is all about getting it sold and getting their commission. There are many other professional caring agents out there, right? So from my perspective, I know this man and I know that's not what it's about for him. I know that, he cares deeply about his clients. I know that he does not like, when things go wrong, but of course, during the transaction, he's losing sight of that every so often. And understanding that purpose and always being connected with it and your value is pretty important. So that it just goes to show you, right, that you always have to kind of be reminded of that purpose as you go through.
But I think you also need to understand that people are not always going to be happy no matter how much effort you have given them.
Yep.
That's just, and they may not say anything and everything could be fine and dandy until 2 weeks after, and the basement floods and suddenly it's your fault for pushing them in. It's a very high stress situation and you're the easy, the easy out for them. And you just kind of have to accept that if you're going to be the fall guy.
Yep.
It's unfortunate, but it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great point as well, right? Sometimes none of it's out of your control, or none of it's all out of your control. None of it's in your control, but definitely something to keep in mind. Very true in kind of any sales position. You're the easy target if there's any negative. But there is that certain aspect that you can control, and that's focused on your purpose and providing the best value that you can, and staying consistent with that, right? That's important as well. Because if you're clear on expectations, there's not a lot of wiggle room as you provide your value proposition and are clear in conveying what that looks like. You know, there's not a lot of wiggle room for them to say that you promised this and didn't deliver, right? So yeah, good. So value proposition distills your service offerings into a set of benefits for your client, right? Being clear on what that is, and states what you do to earn your commission. So you're ultimately providing this value proposition so that they understand, well, you know, you're overpaid, right? How many times have we heard that? How many times do we see that? Like, they earn so much money. Well, understanding what that looks like. And one of my favorites is kind of going through that idea of being paid on an hourly basis as opposed to by commission, right? Well, I've taken you to X amount of homes, driven between here and there, and you know, spent time putting the marketing in place or whatever it might be, right? But having that value proposition and clarifying around that definitely puts you in a better position when you're able to say, well, here's what I do for my commission. Every business kind of has that. I remember back in the teaching days, one of the arguments for that is, well, teachers should make more money. Well, no, they shouldn't. They make plenty of money, right? But then you look at them in terms of if they were only a daycare. So think about how much you pay for one child to go to daycare. You pay the same typically for another child to go to daycare, and what that cost is way different than the salary of a teacher. But anyway, same idea. So we usually have a loose understanding of how we provide our clients with value, and it's easy to forget that they might misunderstand. Kind of talk about this a little bit. Or very little of what that is, because they don't understand the real estate transaction and what that looks like. So it really has to kind of intertwine with the story of what's going to happen during the transaction, being clear on expectations, and what you do differently that other agents don't to really put that value proposition out there. For example, let's say if you're fluent in English and Spanish, you may be tempted to simply say, I'm bilingual. While that's true, it doesn't convey your value to the client exactly, not really, right? I have access to a large pool of potential buyers for your home who are often overlooked by other agents, is another way you can say it. So it's about providing the value and making sure they understand what that means. So it's not just saying a thing, it's saying and describing that thing so that they see why it's important and why you get paid so much, right? So we're going to kind of go through here in a second, crafting your own value proposition statement. So we're going to do that. But before that, I want to talk about the final aspect of service, which is functionary versus fiduciary. So let's talk about what each of these words mean and what the difference is. What's a functionary? What does a functionary typically do? Any ideas? Mohammed, haven't heard from you. Benny?
Just going through the steps.
I love how you said it. Just completing the task, just going through the steps. What's the big difference between a functionary and fiduciary then?
Your heart.
Your heart, and ultimately it's where your heart lies, right? Because with a functionary and a fiduciary, you're going through the steps as a functionary, you're doing the same as a fiduciary, you're still doing kind of that same task. Let's say you're describing the same person here, but the fiduciaries, ultimately you're looking out for the best interest of the client above all else. So that's the big difference, right? Where your heart lies. So we hear the word a lot, right? It's kind of an honor because there's not a lot of places where you have this kind of role in everyday life. Of course, you're going through a transaction. This is one of the biggest things that biggest purchases, biggest financial decision that most people make in their lives. And we're placed at the center of that. They put their trust in us to be able to accomplish this goal for them. And we truly are looking out for their best interests above our own commission and all that stuff set aside. We have to be looking out for the client's best interest according to our license and our moral obligations. But what other roles out there are like this? I mean, what can you think of any? That's pretty standard that, people make a decision every 5 to 10 years. Is there a whole lot of other places that you have this fiduciary type role?
Well, as a Class A builder, I got to have it there too,
Okay.
for all my clients.
Yeah. So describe what that looks like.
Just taking care of them, customers right. Giving them more than what they expect.
Good.
You always tell them something, but you give them more. What got me a lot of business in my day was they'd ask for a price, and I always give a price more than it's supposed to be. So when I finish the job and it's $10,000 less than what I told them, I get the next job
Yeah. And the referral.
and the referral.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Vinny. Any questions about this? Any clarity needed? All right. So know and state your value. So what I want you to do is go ahead and we're going to take a second, kind of reflect on this. And then I'm going to have you guys share. We're going to kind of roll right through this and then talk about delivering value. But you have your packet that was emailed out to you. If you don't, of course, Kari just went through earlier in the presentation to show you that it's in the chat box if you need it. So go ahead and pull that open. And it's going to be the fourth page or whatever, page 4. Yeah. Reflect on your values. So take a second, go ahead and go through that. What words would you use to describe yourself? How would people who know you personally describe you? What skills do you have that make you great at real estate? What experiences do you have that make you great at real estate? And then consider the 3 aspects of service we just talked about: purpose, value proposition, and fiduciary. How are these aspects already present in your relationship with your clients, and how could you improve on your service based on your understanding of these 3 aspects? So go ahead and take 3 minutes, 4 minutes to go ahead and answer these questions. Words to describe yourself personally. Who know you personally describe you? I'll give you just a second. Well, just a couple of minutes. Okay, just gonna go ahead and give you a second or so to wrap it up. I got my Wisconsin water. Just kidding. I did have a wine at lunch though. So what words would you use to describe yourself besides honest, Vinny? Besides honest.
Caring, giving, and a listener.
Okay. Katrina, how about yourself?
I said smart, generous, and personable.
Awesome. I love that we're different, right? Because that's what people are looking for, how you describe yourself. Mohammed, are you with us? Are you just listening?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. What words would you use to describe yourself, Mohammed? And your
So
value
hard worker,
proposition?
quick learner, and willing to sacrifice.
Good. Now, for all of you, would that be similar to those that know you personally? Those words that you use to describe yourself, would other people use those same words?
I would hope so.
Okay. Everybody?
My wife might not.
Okay.
I think mine's a variable. I wrote, because I had this conversation with a group of friends recently. I wrote 3 words, and I wrote fierce, funny, and knowledgeable, which are sort of a variant on the words I chose for myself.
Mhm.
But that's their take.
Yeah.
And I'll take it.
Good. So ultimately, this is going to be kind of the foundation for how to begin this proposition, right? And if you haven't done it in a while, maybe it's a little bit of kind of resetting it up. So two of you on here have been at it for a little while at least, and have taken clients and worked with clients, but that doesn't mean you can't adjust the way you're doing things. I know I do it all the time, especially when I'm working a script that I've never worked before. I'm working that script, I go through it, and I keep track of the responses I'm getting. And I did it for the Drew event, right? Same idea. Like, I deliver your value proposition. If you're not getting the right feedback, you adjust it. You work to deliver it in a way that's going to be received well, even if the values aren't changing. So let's talk a little bit about what buyers want. Help find the right home home to purchase. Negotiate the terms of sale. Price negotiations. What are we typically working with buyers? What do you find that the buyers want from you in different markets, right? What are you finding of those that you're working with currently? What are they asking for? Is it what's on the screen? The right home purchase? I mean, obviously that's kind of a big one, right? What are some other things that you're finding that they want? And this is a way to adjust your value proposition too, as you work with more and more clients. It's kind of the one thing that's most important. So this is the profile according to the NAR. Finding that right home purchase, helping negotiate the terms of sale, price negotiations, and kind of everything else, right? But the biggest thing is that perfect home. Knowing what people want makes it easier to create a compelling value proposition. Then it's about making it unique to you and what's going to stand out to the right people. What buyers value? We talked about reputation already. Honest and trustworthy, Vinny. Agent is a friend or family member. Knowledge of the neighborhood. Well, what do all these have in common, right? When we're talking about that value or what matters to people, reputation of the agent, honest and trustworthy, friend or family member, they're all going to be the same because they understand, they know what that person's all about, right? They have that Connection. Let's see, talk about the attributes here. So let's take a second. It looks like page 7, client-centered language. What skills do you have or services do you have that offer that you offer that align with what buyers want? So let's just shout out, see if we can figure something out. Instruct them to work through the skills and services they offer and kind of rephrase into language that explains its values to buyers. So take a look at the page 7 and tell me what you think. What characteristics or habits do you have that align with what buyers value? How do you describe that? By bragging about your reputation, by talking about how honest and trustworthy you are without saying you're honest and trustworthy, because we know that doesn't always go down well, right? You say it in a way that aligns with that, and you can describe it without, I guess, blowing it, right? So how do you get that client-centered language out there?
Well, if we can go back a little bit to what those buyers want, there's that other section, which I am convinced is the unicorn section. But it's also a value proposition that we can use. Buyers don't want to fight right now for houses. And so one of the value propositions that we can bring to the table is saying, I am in this great office, I'm in a great team, and we work and we share each, we talk about listings coming, and I have an insight into what's coming on the market through team, right? Or through our office. And I think that's one of the things that they want to hear, because they need to know that it's not just going to be setting up an auto email, that you're actively engaging in the home search itself rather than just doing the auto email. And I think that's, especially in this market right now, that's some of the key words that they're going to want to hear.
Yeah. And that's a great way to describe it. And Katrina, I think, kind of highlights as well why we don't always leave our value proposition the same. Like, it's not something you should put out there and then leave for 20 years as you go through the business. Now, there's certain things that you can do that with, but you're going to want to, just like you said, like that other section right here, one of the things that buyers want in order to find the right home, they also don't want to be submitting 25 different offers to be able to get that right home, right? So that's part of the other section. That does change based on market, based on what's happening in the market currently. Good. That's great. Anybody have anything else they'd like to share about kind of putting that information out there about what buyers want, what they value, in order to, to help earn their business and show them that you're an honest and trustworthy agent, you're knowledgeable in the marketplace? Mohammed, what is yours looking like right now? What did you say to yourself to earn your business? I'm just kidding. But I know you've got some people that you're planning to work with.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Just being genuine with them. I think people will know that you are genuine. You're not trying to say things that you like. I'm not going to tell them that, hey, I have a lot of experience, but if I'm being genuine with them and tell them that I'm really willing to help you, they will know. They will know that you're really there to help them.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very important to make sure that you're genuine and sharing the right information with them. Good.
What Katrina hit on was pretty important about using your Keller Williams Dulles and the people we have in it and the team. That's a big talking point that Jane and I use.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for highlighting that, Vinny. You're right.
Yeah, really, that is the biggest highlight that we have is our office and our broker and what we've done. But a little advantage Janie and I have with buyers is I do have a class license. I've built many houses. I can walk into a house and tell you everything that's wrong with it. I'll keep my mouth shut, but you know, I can tell you everything. And Janie and I have bought many houses. We've bought probably 20 houses. So we have been through the process many times. So we know what we can tell them for them to expect. We've been through it many times. Doesn't mean
Yep.
I'm with buyers.
And that's exactly right, Vinny. You know, you're leveraging the experience you do have, whether it's your own personal experience, you know, in purchasing those homes, or whether it's the office experience you're leveraging, and ultimately that's what's going to help you in those situations that you need anyway. So why not put them in your value proposition? They are important. I mean, there's tons of agents out there, right? And a lot of them fail because, one, they don't know what they're getting into. They don't know, you know, what it's going to take or how to get there. But two, they don't have the right experience or the right people behind them to help them work through that experience, right? So appreciate you sharing that. What sellers want? Sell my house. Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest ones, right? Market the home to potential buyers. One of the coolest things that I remember learning is people have this kind of story about their home, no matter who it is, right? They have an idea about their home, and they have an idea, at least if they're not in real estate, they have this picture of who the people are that are going to buy their home. They're going to live in their home. So one of the things I started doing is when I was talking to sellers, I would ask them who they expect to purchase their home, what type of person. You know, some people would say, I feel like this is a starter home. That's how we used it. We've been here for 10 years, and now our kids are too old, and we need more space, and those kind of things, right? They have an idea of who this buyer is going to be. And then that's what we would use to focus our marketing, right? This is how we market to first-time home buyers or small families, so that, you know, it shows them what our value proposition is to help them get what they want, which ultimately is selling the home. But then they have this idea of who it's going to go to or whatever. But price the home competitively, ultimately getting the most amount they can, sell within a specific time frame. They have to be in Atlanta by whatever day. They have to, you know, they have to be gone. They have to be to Florida, whatever it is, sell within that specific time frame. Also, flip side, help find the buyer for the home, or help them find the right place to be, downsizing or getting a bigger place or whatever it is. Help with negotiation and dealing with those buyers. And then, of course, that other market specific, market conditions, those type of things. And you can find a little bit more info on the page 8 in your packet about what sellers want and what they value. Kind of the same idea. What would that language look like for you? What are you going to be? How are you going to convey that to make sure they see your value and they understand, like, this is what we're going to be able to put forth. The reputation of the agent's important. Agents honest and trustworthy. Agents a friend or a family member. All kind of the same info, right? On the flip side of things. So funny thing, they tell you to talk about leveraging the market center in the instructor packet. So that just popped up there on the bottom. leverage your market center. And I know I've told that to a couple of people already. You don't have the experience, you're new here, you haven't done a lot of listings. Well, the market center certainly has, and there's agents in the market center that have. There's current listings, current buyers. Plug in. That's why it's super important to be plugged into the office and stay plugged into the office, because that is a great network, especially with an office like ours, where a lot of the agents do have that kind of local experience, or specific local experience, like specific areas. Awesome. It's also knowing who your competitors are, right? Who are the people that are out there in the neighborhood? Let's say you understand and you're fighting for a specific listing. Well, who's the agent that's the neighborhood agent, right? Katrina, I think we had this conversation like 2 or 3 weeks ago, didn't we? You were talking about jumping into a neighborhood, and you were talking to a friend of yours that you had known for however long. And he was like, I think I'm going to go with the neighborhood agent, the local agent. And basically understanding the market and who your competitor was and how you could deliver a better value was important. So that's one of the things that you need to know as well. And it doesn't hurt to go into, even if you don't know if you're competing or not, it doesn't hurt to go into a listing or a listing presentation with that information, like a local agent. Well, who sold the most houses in that neighborhood? What brokerage it has, and what do they typically offer, right? Sometimes we're competing against Redfin and kind of that value proposition. So understanding those and how to show your value proposition in a better light is pretty important. So who do you guys see that you've been competing with? Katrina, Vinny, anybody specific? You guys ever had that conversation about Redfin or anything?
Oh, my neighborhood, it's 100 houses.
Okay.
And we've been trying for 5 years to just get one. And it hasn't been one solid realtor working the neighborhood. It's a new one every so often. As a competition, I don't believe I have competition. That's my attitude in life, period.
Okay.
But yes, my dear friend across the street for 35 years, 45 years, went to Redfin. I mean, that was their choice in life.
Sure.
I look at things a lot different. Marcella tried to farm this place. I didn't think he got anything. He farmed our neighborhood for about 4 or 5 years. Most of the people here, they already know somebody, and they usually will go with that somebody, or they go with somebody from their church. We've had great success with our Mets. We've only sold one house to people we haven't met before. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because Janie has a much prettier face than I do. I'm not the type of person that walks into somebody's house and they want to sell their house when they don't know you.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a beautiful wife who's learning how to be a real estate agent. So she can get all the unmets and I keep the Mets going.
Get to keep the Mets
And to
going.
be honest with you, our last sale was an unmet. They got a flyer, and the flyer had a picture of me and my phone number and a picture of my wife and her phone number. Who did they call? My wife. And she got it instantly. So I don't believe in competition. I just don't. I think Katrina will never be my competition. Nobody in the office will ever be my competition. I believe, and maybe I'm silly for believing it. I trust that the right people at the right time will want me or want Jane, want us. And if they don't, it's their loss.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think one of the important parts about that, when you're talking about that, it doesn't necessarily have to be a competition, right? But you can also be a reason they choose you, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be this competition around what's better or what's different. It's also a matter of, well, how do you show your value proposition in light of somebody else's, because things like, a cheaper way to sell your house. Well, I mean, obviously there's a reason it's pulled some traction, because that's one of the first things that people think about. Well, how can I save money, right? Well, I'm saving money at that listing, right? A 1% listing or whatever it is. So how do you show that that's not always in their best interest?
I think for me, I think that competition is obviously not that I need to beat someone else's numbers. Okay, my job is to meet or beat my own numbers or my own goals. I think for me, a lot of it is name recognition. When I'm going into things, a lot of times the other agents coming in are on large teams who have a lot of name recognition. Either they're just neighborhood known, or just bigger teams. And I think learning your value is being able to respond to, coming up with your script to respond to, well, we plan on going with Redfin. Well, have you looked at actual numbers, and having those numbers prepared already once you're in, the meeting. Or there's a big team. They've got 400 agents on their team. Okay. And then coming up, knowing the script to be able to counter that, and understanding that my personal touch, that is me you're dealing with, versus an office of 400 agents who are splitting 500 leads, or however you want to deal with that, is you're not competing against. I'm never going to be that large team. I don't want to be that person. I want to maintain a personal relationship. I want to be your realtor for life. I don't just need this deal. I want to earn your trust. That's the competition. Yeah.
Right. So, let's look at it this way. And I appreciate you sharing that. It's kind of what I think about, and what I try to say, or whatever, around competition if I get something on the phone. So imagine this. Let's say you guys are out and about driving your car around, and something crazy happens to the transmission, and there you are on the side of the road. It's the middle of the day, and you don't have anybody to call. You can't talk to anybody, but you got this car trouble. What do? Right now, imagine that same thing happens, but Bill at the local dealership, and you give him a call and you say, hey, Bill, I've got some car trouble. And Bill reaches out to a tow truck for you, sends the tow truck over, gets you in a rental car, and gets your car started to be worked on to see what's going on with it. Well, which scenario is better? You don't know somebody, you're calling a number that you found, online, or you call somebody that you know and trust, and they get you into the dealership, they get you started with your service right away, and they get you in a car. And within an hour or two, you're back on the road doing whatever you had to do. Which one sounds better to you, right? It's kind of the same idea. You paint that picture. You understand, what is this service going to look like? The scenario that could happen might not happen, but it could happen. So which one are you going to be to that person, and to be able to show it to them, right? Definitely integrate with technology. As I always say, make sure you talk to Mike about it. And delivering that value, distinguishing yourself is going to be important, right? You want to create the right experience with the services that you provide. So I thought there was a thing in here, but we're not going to go through the activity together, but I am going to challenge you to do it on your own. So this is, if you already have that value proposition, kind of that mind map, it is on page 12 and 13. So create the mind map around your value proposition. If you already have one, great, put it down here, go through it. And then that value proposition statement. It's unique, memorable, and persuasive statement. So take the time to go through that between now and next week, if you're with us. If you're not, the following week, and go ahead and kind of bring it in. Take the time to do your value proposition, go through some of the thoughts and ideas around, if you look on page 12, services, skills, knowledge, character, what the values that are important to you that you want to get across, address those areas and put it in your value proposition. What are you going to do to earn your commission? And hold yourself accountable to that high standard. Okay, that's all I had for today. Does anybody have any questions? Want to add anything?
No, I can't come next week. I'm going to visit my mother for the first time in 2 years. She's in a nursing home.
Well, I hope you enjoy the visit, Vinny. Is it far or is it?
Fredericksburg.
Okay,
But we're going down to the beach, get a hotel room, spend the night,
gotcha.
have a little bit of
Gotcha.
fun while we're doing it.
Okay, well, good. Well, I'm glad you're able to visit. I know it's been tough not being able to see those loved ones, so enjoy that trip. All right, anybody else? Okay,